Hello, I hope you are doing well. So today we'll see more details about the Rock of Rust formal verification tool that we have built. So formal verification is a field with many different approaches and many different technologies that can be hard to navigate sometimes. So that's why we make these videos to give more explanation about what we are doing and what you can do with our systems. So at a high level, when you do formal verification, there are always two steps. One is to translate your code, your implementation to a formal language, because typical programming languages like Rust or C, they will not provide formal verification capabilities. So you need to make a translation to tools like Rock, Lean, or SMT solvers. This is the first step, their translation. And after, once you have this formal representation of your code, you can write your formal specification, so all the properties that you want to check as being correct for any input. And after, you can do a verification work that can be more or less automated depending on the tool. And there is also another alternative is to make the translation by hand. In that case, we say that you formally verify a model of the code. It's not as precise and it's hard to maintain. It can be also a first step to verify the design. This is something that you can do in TLA, for example, for distributed systems. So here we'll see what we do for Rust. So we built the tool Rock of Rust. It does this first step of translation to a formal language from the Rust programming language to the Rock formal language. It was built by us along different projects, and it's open source, so you can find it on GitHub and also use it. The main strength of the tool and why we designed it is to cover most of the Rust language. So if you are practicing some Rust, you can see that it's a very rich language with a lot of different syntax, both high level and low level. So it's quite challenging to support everything that's necessary if you want to handle a real code base with all the optimizations as well as all the dependencies, which there can be many bugs as well, as we see in many examples. And the cost is complexity, because you need to design your reasoning rules. So you might have support for some part of the syntax that is rarely used, but then you will need to define also your reasoning rule. So the hope is that as we verify more examples, we will have reasoning rules to conveniently handle more and more of the Rust language. So for now, we can handle comfortably enough programs with a few thousand lines doing mainly memory manipulation in the stack. To give a bit of a view, but of course we need to go further to have more automation. There's always need for more automation and also better handling of stack operation, of heap operation, especially with mutations. So as an example that we translate, there is a core library, which is a dependency of all Rust programs. It's not disable. You cannot disable it even with no STD. So it's quite large. It's 60,000 lines of Rust, and it makes use of advanced Rust features because there is a lot of optimized code, and this code was written by experienced Rust programmers. So they use, I think, about all of the possible features of Rust. But for example, you have the definition for the primitive types with all the utility functions, some marker traits that are used everywhere, all the error handling primitives about option and result, as well as iterator functions. So maybe something like a third of the Rust code is about calling the core library, so it's very useful to have formal translation of this library, so that you are sure that you are correct when you do proofs with respect to all the definitions for all the utility functions from the core. And we translate it all in Rock. It's automated. You just need to type the Rock of Rust command, and it generates about 1 million lines of Rock, because it unfolds all the definition, even the macro that can be generating much more code than it seems. All the derive and the types are unfolded, and all the files except a small blacklist are compiling. So of course, so what we do there is that we translate the Rust syntax to corresponding Rock file that type check. But for now, we are not talking about the semantics, that are the reasoning rules that we add later in the second step. But it still required a lot of work, especially to have a representation of most of the syntax tree. So we connect to the Rust compiler at the thir step, where you have basically all the expressions from the source code that are still visible with type annotations. And we translate everything from this syntax tree with the information that we need later for the semantics rules, like for example, the type annotation of each sub-expression. And we need to make it type check in all corner cases. And of course, when you take real Rust examples, you will have a lot of cases that you have not thought about. So to give an example, if we take the core option.rs file that defines the option type and all the corresponding utility functions, the first function is this one. To apply a function, if there is some x. If we run Rock of Rust, we obtain the following code. That is a bit more verbose, but we can recognize the flow with the match above the parameters of the function. And after, depending on the case, if it's a none, we return false. Otherwise, we copy the element of the sum and we apply the parameter function. So there there's still a work in progress also at this point. So there we do a copy instead of a move. So we do not invalidate the original memory. This is a further improvement that will be necessary to properly handle unsafe Rust. And yes, so that's it for this presentation. And next, we'll see more detail about how Rock of Rust is implemented to connect to the Rust compiler and pretty print the Rock code, and how we define on the Rock side the primitives of the Rust syntax tree. You can find the link on GitHub or our blog to have more technical details. Thanks.